Thank you, Manu, and thank you also to our life coaches and support animals on the left of the panel. My name is Veljko Popović, and this is Milivoj Popović. We're the co-directors and producers of VR short film or experience, Dislocation. So, yeah, I think we can start with a quick show reel of our studio, Prime Render Studio, so that we kind of get the ball rolling. So if you can, yeah, there it goes.
Oh my God, we did some architectural visualizations as well. I always try to suppress that part of our studio's history.
But that's where the money lies, no?
That was, yeah, where we lost a piece of our souls. So that was just like a short reel to see some of the painful stuff we did, but also some of the fun stuff we did. And we actually started as a game development studio, which is something we often mention, just because it really ties well into the VR part of our filmmaking process. And so we started actually as Lemonade P, like Lemonade Productions. And this was such a long time ago. We're not getting any younger.
You see, system requirements, Windows 95.
Yeah, that was actually before smartphones. This was when you played casual games on a PC. And this was our idea how to make money. And of course, all of these games were so complicated, nobody could play them, and we didn't make any money. And we're always bested by, some breasted woman, putting beer in glasses. That was the game that was released at the same time that buried us completely. So, we quickly decided that wasn't a good fit for us, but it gave us a really nice foundation for something that we would do years later, which is the Dislocation project. And we really started dabbling in VR on a commissioned project that we did for our German partners, Imagination First, that actually wanted us to develop a theme park ride using VR. And this was an excuse for us to see and explore more what the VR medium can do for storytelling. And what you can see here is actually just like a balloon VR ride where you sit. The fun part was that we actually reconstructed this whole 3D environment that's really close to you, the VR basket and all of that. We recreated it in the real world so you can interact with it. And it was super fun to see people trying to step outside of the VR basket, imagining they would fall, where in fact, nothing is happening. So for us, that gave us like an idea how immersive VR can be and how you can really transfer emotions and you can transfer people very quickly into other worlds where they are really convinced. You know, people were like trying to step, even though 2 minutes ago they just entered into this VR experience, already they were not sure if they would fall, you know, if they step outside of the basket. So we felt this was something very interesting for storytelling, because for us it was always about connecting with our audience, you know, emotionally.
But also we were always trying to experiment with different techniques and different approaches in our films, from 2D to 3D to trying different approaches to filmmaking and to experimenting with short animated films. So for us, in the end, a couple of years ago, when we got a chance to work in VR, we again kind of felt this same rush that we had when we were experimenting with 3D in the late 90s and the beginning of 2000s, when it was really an emerging field in animation, and we were now back in this kind of pioneering state where we were creating interactive content using VR, virtual reality and augmented reality. So it was, for us, it was again all about experimenting and trying to find ways how we can use technology to create powerful stories and moving images. Yeah. NFT.
Yeah, so as Veljko said, we always like to dabble in new technologies. So it's an endless road because technology always develops. And what we really found interesting was, although our VR experience is mostly tailored for HTC Vive, Oculus came up with a really fun program for 3D modeling and for creating stuff in virtual environments that's called Quill. And it really it's a strange experience because you're sculpting while painting. It's a complete hybrid of painting and sculpting. And we found this new visual that started to appear extremely interesting. And I just want to put it out there. I want to use this opportunity, this platform, to also mention the NFT space, which is really emerging right now. That's something that we started to also investigate. And this is where we are pushing kind of what we can create using Quill. Non-fungible token. It's all about blockchain. It's all about the crypto revolution that's happening that I can talk about for hours. And maybe we can make a separate panel that's gonna discuss about the NFTs in the world of visual medium and, you know, this emerging technology that is helping artists, digital artists, to really, you know, not just sell their work, but also kind of it's putting the spotlight on visual medium.
Maybe like 2 years ago, just before the pandemic hit, as a studio, we decided to focus solely on our creative projects and creative efforts and try and fund the studio based on our own IPs and on our own work. So NFT has become a really valuable and a big part of this, where we are able to explore our own visual experiments and artistic endeavors and then monetize them through NFTs. So for us, for the past half a year or a bit more, it's been a vessel that allowed us to completely replace our
architecture business.
Yeah, client part of the studio and focus on creating stuff which we can then sell as NFT art.
How many millions did you already make?
It's many billions of rupees. And it's something that we had a very nice discussion, started discussing with Gerben also, because he's really an expert in the world of arts. And it's really something that I feel should be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, so this is a typical
Maybe
NFT
you can say something.
that we're creating. So it's 10-minute short animated loops, such as this, 10 seconds short animated loops, such as this one. And for us, it's a space where we can further explore different visuals, and also it's a place where we are we are showcasing this marriage between virtual reality, classical approach to animation and painting. So because I'm a painter, academic painter by schooling, Milivoj is a sculptor, and our third, let's say, like a most valuable guy in the studio as well, is a painter. So we are also always trying to find ways how we can express our love both for the traditional medium and for the digital medium. So that's one of the approaches, and this visual that you're seeing here directly descended from our VR film Dislocation, where it is showcased in two different segments of the VR experience, which you can see if you hop down to the Museum of Modern Art and check out the VR. All right, so as a last visual cue that kind of sets the stage for the VR is our film called Planimo. Again,
Imagine a world.
It's a film where we try to experiment with different visual approaches. For this film, we used an orthographic camera, so it's a camera without perspective in order to try and create a certain atmosphere of the film. But it's also a film where we explored this kind of polygonal gradient approach to 3D shading, and it's something that we adopted for our VR project. Here I think it worked really well because we wanted to show that people kind of get scattered in their routines, so we used this polygonal approach to further that idea. For us in the VR experience, we used this polygonal look because graphically it's very interesting, but also when you're working with real-time rendering graphics, it's all about creating assets which you can run in real time on the computer. So it landed itself really nicely also for this VR project as well. So
if I can just interject there, because now we're gonna, this was like a first part of what we wanted to talk about, and it's just how we came to VR and how we developed the look that you can see in Dislocation. And the next segment is going to be a little bit more about funding. So I wanted to give a chance if you wanted to ask anything about, you know, this first section before we jump into money talk.
I have just like a technical question, and I mean, you're not a stranger about like using real-time tools and everything, or basically pioneering like tech and stuff. And right now, like real-time and game engine and metaverse and all that stuff is very hype, and also NFT and all that stuff. How do you see, how will this impact the animation industry, if at all? Do you think they will like adapt like real-time tools also for 2D productions, or like, you know, also VR and all that stuff? Or do you think
it's very interesting. It's very interesting when you see softwares like Blender, which is an open-sourced free software for creating 3D content, which is really, you know, up par with any commercial 3D software that you can find, and it's completely community-driven and completely free. And what they're doing, what they have been doing for the past like a year is incorporating the 2D tools for 2D type of drawings inside of Blender. And now I'm seeing a lot of very interesting visuals that are really 2D, that are done inside of Blender, that can then be, you know, married very easily with all of this 3D upcoming technology and even VR, and with the newest sexy word metaverse. As soon as Zuckerberg turned into Meta, you know, it was game over.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's the medium of animation will always be a medium of storytelling. So it's the technology kind of, if you use it with a specific intent, it's a really powerful tool. But if it's boiled down to just you know, using technology for technology's sake, then it becomes this kind of amusement park. You get an amusement park feel to it. So I think, especially if you remember in the early 2000s, we had a emergence of these 3D animated shorts. If you can remember in 2005, 4, 6, 7, 8, and everybody was saying, stop animation and collage animation, 2D animation is dead. You know, everybody is gonna be working in 3D. But now in the past 5 years,
people hate 3D.
but in the past 5 years, when you go to festivals like Animateka, Ottawa, AnimaFest, or any of the other great festivals, you see a lot of sand animation, even pin screen animation, 2D animation, collage animation. Now 3D has become that oddball animated film. Maybe 1 in 10 is 3D, and 3D was celebrated as the next big thing that's gonna kill 2D, especially when Disney kind of killed its 2D department and everything was gearing towards this. And now also we're hearing the same thing about VR and all these things. But in the end, it's about using these tools for storytelling. So I think all of these techniques will be there to stay.
Yeah. Well, I just meant because like the entry level is just like so lower now. Before you really needed to know how the technique works and all, and now you can just use a computer and you don't have to be like a studio of 100 people. You can actually literally be 2 people and do a feature film with like these tools that Epic, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy to see also the motion capture technology really progressing insanely. You know, what people can do with their phones in terms of motion capture and even like facial capture. And I've seen some rigs that people created with, you know, like before, if you want to get a decent motion capture, you had to spend an insane amount of money for a motion capture suit. I mean, it's just like half the budget of the film, you know, which go just for this. But now with the phones, you know, you have, because they're adopting the augmented reality technology. This is something that was not intended for filmmaking. It was intended for, you know, your shit emoji that can float over your head or something like that. But you see creative people realizing the power of these new tools, just like a, you know, silly thing like an iPhone can really help you now do motion capture and facial capture and all of these things. That's really amazing. And as you said, it's enabling people who are not big studios. They can now start using this technology, and even like Epic is a crazy.
Epic plug.
They have like, I mean, it's just insane how much free stuff.
Yeah.
On what level of quality they can they just give away. So it's very exciting for people who are exploring this space to see how the technology is being developed, for sure. Right. So,
moving on to
let's move on.
we're time sensitive, and we kind of have an idea of all the things we want to say. So maybe we're sometimes rushing a bit. We were also we also wanted to talk a little bit about funding for VR, because it's a bit different than funding for a let's call it a regular short animated film. At least this was the case for us to a certain degree. We wanted to do this VR film for a few years. Even before we approached the Croatian Audiovisual Center for funding, but we were waiting for the VR technology to become mainstream in a sense. And then when festivals like Ottawa or Annecy or AnimaFest started to have VR selections and it became a thing, we realized that the time has come for us to approach the funding bodies to try and fund VR, because up to a certain point there's like a certain approach that VR should be like a game-like experience. So it's not a film, it's not a movie. So it was difficult for us to try and convince the funding bodies that we are actually trying to create a film. So when festivals such as this started to have categories dedicated to VR, we decided that it's time to try and realize this idea. So I think when working with emerging technologies, it always pays off to be patient and to be tactical in when is the proper time to try and realize a project. So by the time we came to the Croatian Audiovisual Center, VR was already a thing. But even given this, I think we were the first VR project that the Croatian Audiovisual Center funded, and we did kind of imply that this VR project will also be a classical 3D film for cinemas at a certain point. So you kind of, play your cards right, and you try and create a story that you think can maybe also be visualized in this way. So we are now, a few years after the project has been finished, we are now preparing also to try and create a classical film for a classical theatrical release from the VR. But you need to be, tactical in these things, and sometimes it pays off to, when you're creating an idea, a certain idea for a project, also to think how am I going to present this project in a way that's going to be interesting to a certain funding body. For us, it's always been about creating films that we know that will have the funds to be created in a certain way that we have it envisioned. So for us, getting the proper funds for a film is a must-have, especially as we are witnessing a lot of fantastic professionals and creative people working for really insanely low amounts. So we are trying not to perpetuate this stereotype that you have to die for your art, in a sense, and we want to create productions where people that are working on these productions have a sense that they've been, valued, and that their work deserves a certain fee, which is not, the basic minimum salary in a certain country. So for us, we approach Croatian Audiovisual Center, and luckily, because of our past record and our films, and maybe also because of our ability to create interesting pitching material, we managed to get the funds. But moving from there, we already in our previous films, we had some co-productions. I think it's very important to find production houses that have a certain level of trust in your artistic vision. So we had a very fruitful co-production with a French studio called Bagan Films. And now we have applied with Zagreb Film to get the funds for our classical film, and that's a catch-22 there, because we applied to Croatian Audiovisual Center to get the funding for the VR film, and then when we tried to apply to get the funding for our 3D film, they said, but we already funded this project already before, so they didn't have the capacity to understand that.
These are two very different mediums, very different
films,
things.
Yeah. So.
I just want to interject here and maybe use, while we have Chris, locked in his chair here, and it would be embarrassing for him just to run away, to ask him a question, maybe. If you can give the microphone towards us, it would be very helpful. Thank you very much. So, because you've been asking questions this whole festival, so I want to use this opportunity to maybe ask you a question, because it was interesting for me, since you are...
You're off the script, man. He's off script.
I'm totally off the script here. When did you start considering VR as something to include, worthy of inclusion in a festival, as big as yours? Because once festival started accepting VR films, we felt, okay, this is like a validation that VR is now being considered a film, not like a gaming experience or like an artistic performance, because it's part of a film festival. So was it just,
Trend? Following trends?
Yeah. Did you have like any moment where you said, okay, this VR can be a part of the festival?
Yes.
You can't pull a Društvo here, you have to... We insist on more syllables.
I think we did it a couple of years. We just had VR out of competition, just to explore it. I mean, there weren't many projects, and then I think it reached, you know, it was like feature films too, where that was added as a competition over time, that once you started seeing there were enough quality projects, then it was like, okay, well, we might as well have competition.
And do you see, just like a follow-up here, quick, do you see the increase of VR films that are being submitted, just so we can, you know, like as a audience and also filmmakers see if this is something that's a fad that is slowly dying down, or do you see this something that is a trend that is picking up or maybe here to stay for a couple of more years, or do you see just like people get bored of VR and stop making films? It's a bit longer.
Yes, it's been trending upward. I mean, we'll see if it lasts.
Yeah.
I'm not fully convinced, but.
Yeah, so I curate like VR exhibitions since about 6 years or something. And yeah, I started with Fantoche. At Fantoche, we do not have a competition yet. Well, I don't work for them anymore, but I have to disagree with you. I think that's not something that will die off. I mean, in recent years, especially because of the pandemic, there are more like festivals where specifically just for VR created that are very successful and where people actually send in better works. I agree. I mean, in the last years, it was a hard task to do to find like good work, and it needed time to evolve. But I think it's not a dying thing, and I think like more and more people come into this space, and that's anyway on my agenda to help filmmakers to actually find their way into VR if they're interested in using it, because it allows filmmakers actually to tell stories in a different way that is probably not possible in 2D. So I think it's a very valuable tool. It should never be just about the technology. Unfortunately, a lot of these projects have like this demo type of feel to it. So it can maybe not always compete with established like 2D films that are out there already, but that's just a matter of time, in my opinion. So I think it's not a dying thing.
Yeah.
So I will continue, and it will get like more and more and different
I didn't say it was a dying thing. I said,
Maybe I was just
heard a
dramatizing it.
sub-contest, you know.
No, it's...
Let's see, I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
For me,
Okay,
I think the medium of VR is a fantastic segue from classical animated films to expanded cinema. I think expanded cinema is a very exciting field, and I think we have used VR as a kind of dipping our toes into this a world of expanded cinema. I think especially for animation, because a lot of animators come from classical artistic backgrounds, like, you know, sculptors, painters, and stuff like this. So I think expanded cinema is something that should be explored more by animators, and we have used VR as a certain, for us at least a small experience into the expanded cinema.
Yeah, maybe even augmented reality can, you know, because this is virtual reality and augmented reality is also being developed. I've seen some interesting storytelling done in this way, so I'm thinking maybe in the future that's something that's going to be developed even more, because with the VR headset you're kind of excluding the outside world, and with the augmented reality you can actually use the elements, you know, to superimpose some storytelling over, you know, existing environments, which could be something also to see.
Yeah, and now again, to go back to the hype of metaverse, I mean, now more and more like people have digital identities with avatars and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff that we do in real life will be moving more and slowly into the digital space, and also like embodiment of yourself in a digital space and all that stuff. And there VR plays actually a big role in it, not only, but also.
Yeah.
And games, obviously, like Fortnite and all that. Epic again.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can maybe just touch on quickly, before we move on, the actual production of the project. just want to also raise awareness or just mention the Epic Mega Grant, which was a part of the funding for our project, which is actually the first time that we got funding from such an institution. It's actually a company. So Epic has this Epic Mega Grant, which is something that they have, you know, a certain amount of funds every year that they give to creative people who use Unreal Engine, not even exclusively. You know, you have a very good chance if you use Unreal Engine, but I've seen projects that don't even use like Unreal Engine. They just want to support art and artistic endeavors in this space who are kind of pushing the boundaries and exploring digital space for storytelling and other projects like gaming. And it was one of the, I mean, when you come from a classical budget funding and stuff like that, and you have like 10 pages of documents that you need to fill out and bank statements and I don't know how many loops you have to jump through to get funding. Epic Mega Grant is surprisingly simple. It's just like write 500 words about your projects and tell us how much money you want. And that was, that was basically
They're
the whole...
not paid to say that, just so.
Yeah, we're not, you know, it was... And then when they give you money, they say, you don't even have to mention that we gave you money, you know. If you like, you can mention, otherwise you don't really need to mention. I mean, it's just... It's a beautiful, beautiful endeavor from a company that, you know, clearly made, you know, it has a lot of money. Yeah, from Fortnite and stuff like that. So I encourage everybody here who is working in a digital medium to explore this as a definite way of funding some of your projects.
Moving on now to actual project Dislocation VR. Short film, so I'll start it off with a short trailer for those who did not have the opportunity to see it yet. Yeah, so first I would like to just approach the idea of why we chose VR, and maybe Misha can say a few words.
Yeah,
why VR.
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, we really, when we were doing the commercial VR work, we noticed this ability to connect so viscerally with the audience and you know, get these emotional reactions. And the subjects of refugees and the refugee crisis and general state of humanity is always something that we try to address in our films. These are very important subjects for us to explore. And we've really felt the subject that we had of the refugee crisis was a perfect fit, if I can say, to this idea of doing something in VR. So it really wasn't so much like, what can we do in VR? It was just like this perfect moment where we had this idea of something we wanted to explore, and then marrying it with the technology of VR, it made perfect sense for us, because we felt the main point behind the project is connection of the audience with this human experience that we usually watch. For myself, we usually watch it over TVs, like completely disjointed, and we felt this was a perfect opportunity to tell a story like this in VR.
Yeah. So when we decided to do a VR film, our approach was how to use this technology of VR to tell a specific story. So it was not the other way around, where we had an idea and then we said, oh, VR is a hot new thing, so let's try and do it inside VR. We really approached VR as a medium and tried to tailor a story specifically for VR. And I think in a lot of ways, just the medium of VR kind of guides you and tells you how to approach it. So we quickly decided that there will be no transportation or locomotion inside our VR, because usually that's a point where you get a lot of queasy people. You know, some people just cannot take it, and you know, they even vomit, or it's really discomfortable for them.
I was the test dummy, because I get very easily, you know, queasy in VR. As soon as something is moving and I'm standing still, I'm like, okay.
Secondly, we decided not to create a game-like experience in VR. We've seen a lot of fantastic VR films that rely too heavily on the users doing specific motions or doing specific actions, like in a game-like setting, and then you get stuck because you're either not intuitive enough or you're not understanding the language of VR enough to explore it in a certain way, and then instead of connecting with the story and with the emotion in front of you, you are lost in trying to solve these kind of puzzles. So we decided to make our interaction to a minimum, and even the interaction that we decided on in the end was there to further push the story and the idea of the film. So it's not like you need to pick up this and then do this and this kind of starts the story or something. So in the end, it's pretty arbitrary. For us, it was the only interaction in the film is there for two reasons, and that's the interaction is that at a certain point in the film, you need to move inside the character. So to a certain point, you are just like a bystander. You're watching this fold in front of you, but then we force you. The story cannot progress unless you get involved. So this has two things that happens. First, people relax a bit and they start moving inside this 3D space. That's the first thing. And the second thing, it's really interesting when you have to not only kiss almost this character in front of you, but even make a more
aggressive,
more intimate movement of you know, going inside him. So this for us was a very emotional moment, but it also progresses the film because the next scene in the film happens inside the head of the protagonist. So you kind of enter in it. So this for us was one of those wonderful moments that are specific for VR. So for a classical film, this experience is much less powerful. So VR seemed like a perfect technological kind of segue into.
If I can just add, we did get a little bit of backlash when discussing this project with people saying, "But you are not refugees. Why are you discussing? Why are you making a film about refugees if you are not refugees?" So I just want to mention that, you know. And maybe start a discussion, maybe not start.
Can I just shortly tell my experience in Annecy?
Yes.
In Annecy,
Okay.
I was experiencing it for the first time. Actually, it was the first installation, right, in Annecy?
Yeah.
And you brought me through, and I came out and I was crying. And I never cried, or almost never cried with a film. So it was so intense for me that actually I felt what those people are feeling, and we are watching nowadays like Belarus, Polish border. But as you were saying, Milivoj, yeah, you watch it on television, maybe the first images are shocking you a little bit, then they are repeating so much, we are getting completely
Used to it.
cold towards this. But I think like you managed to get the emotions, complete emotions.
Well, thank you so much. I mean,
Yeah,
for us, that's...
It was also a wonderful moment for us as
Yeah.
well, and we had many strong emotional responses to the film, but also we had a lot of completely cold kind of people that get fascinated with the technology, and I think that's the barrier that's there, because sometimes people just get captivated with the technology. They're not experiencing the experience. They are, you know, like exploring. Ooh, look at this rock! I can put my head
Sometimes it's very
inside the rock
frustrating
or
in
something
VR
like this.
because people can look around and you're like, no, that's where the story is, and he's watching the rock, trying to enter into the rock to see what's going to happen with the polygons. Am I going to break the VR experience, pushing the head in the rock? And I'm like, no, the guy's over there.
Yeah, so it was really interesting for us. There are some, we could really talk on and on about the specific way how to approach filmmaking inside VR, because we knew we need to contain the people inside a certain square footage. Otherwise, they'll be bumping into walls and you know, walking off to who knows where. So throughout the film, we choreograph the movement of the viewer. So you are not even aware of this, but at a certain point, the character passes by you, and he puts you in a certain place, and then he looks at you, and then you kind of go to a certain place. So there was a lot of thought in this choreography, because at a lot of moments you need to be at a certain position in this play space where you're experiencing the VR, and it cannot be forced. It needs to be something that you're kind of doing naturally without even thinking about it, especially in the last scenes of the film where you have this dark figure that runs towards you. You need to be at a certain specific place, otherwise it doesn't work. So there's a lot of interesting things in approaching VR. We were trying it 100 times, you know, and drawing on our studio floor where each person was moving, and then we would try and figure out, oh, what do we need to do to kind of get him to rotate 90 degrees. So it was all this kind of like bees in a...
Yeah, you're not directing actors, you're directing viewers.
Yeah, the viewer is the camera, so you're kind of trying to make the viewer do exactly what you wanted him to do. So we spent a lot of time experimenting with this and trying to create an experience that feels organic and that you feel that you can go anywhere, but you're going exactly where we want you to go. So
maybe we can show some of the fun videos.
Yeah, maybe when working in VR, there's a lot of ideas that you bring from classical film, and then you realize they're not possible inside VR. Or you recreate them inside real-time render engines, but they're not possible inside VR. So we did a lot of experimentation with our visuals. So there's a bunch of videos where we're exploring different visual solutions inside VR, and actually we created so many different and interesting experiments that we might as well make one more film with all of these characters and ideas that we threw aside in the end. So
was this motion capture? Or?
Yeah. Everything is motion capture, and this is our motion capture dancer just having some fun, and we ended up using that as a test.
Yeah, so that's one visual approach. We are also experimenting with different ways how to make the characters more ethereal, make them more expressive. So we created a lot of these effects, which I think are a first. A lot of them
Yeah, it was a lot of the things that we did were first. I mean, we couldn't find reference of anybody doing these technological things inside VR when we were trying to solve the issues that we were running into when we wanted to.
So this is also. So I will show you a quick montage of all the crazy stuff we tried out. were some early tests and some early workarounds, and maybe this is also an interesting video to show. So our idea was to create the visual of the main character, to have this nervous energy to it, to have this constant state of flux. So we, in the end, what we did is we created a bunch of variations of the main character, and then using the timeline inside Unreal, we would switch on and switch off different variations of the environment to create this this sense of nervousness and change inside the main character. But we also created an algorithm that drives these changes based on the music. So the music and the beat of the music drives the changes of the main character. There was a lot of these small technological solutions in the end that we had to use and had to recreate from scratch, basically, in order to get the visual that we want. So this is one of the a recording from one of the sessions for the choreography of the film. So those who watch the film will recognize some of these scenes. It was also very interesting for us to work with a choreographer and a dancer in order to...
Yeah, it's fun to work with real people. It's not just, you know, characters. You know, so that was really, you know, we liked it very much.
So I will show you a quick video which kind of goes through this.
Yeah, so we're going to open the floor for questions now. You can basically see the motion capture suit that we got from the Faculty of Kinesiological Studies. They were kind enough to share this motion capture suit, which is really, really very expensive, very good motion capture suit. That allowed us to transfer this acting and all the dancing into the VR.
Okay, so as a final little piece of animation before we call it quits, and then if there's time, maybe open the floor for a few questions. There's this very...
people even more in the subject before they enter the VR space, so you kind of get into the mindset of the VR experience. All of this is meant to facilitate and help the emotional and visceral connection that we want the viewers to have with the subject that is being explored. The VR experience, I have to say, we are very proud of our installation that can be dismantled and carried around very efficiently. We're all very surprised that it worked. So maybe, yeah, we can start it here and yeah, do some quick questions. Gerben is the emotional support that we needed.
Yeah. Yeah. He's our life coach, so he's there. He's here for support. Thank you, Gerben.
I was curious about this motion capture. Without this technology which you had, would you be able to make it like, for example, like my studio don't have access to super expensive suit,
Yeah.
100,000 euros. So what would I be able to do as a studio to approach to something like this?
Well, for us, it's opportunity creates creativity for our studio. So if we didn't have this motion capture suit, we would come up with a different creative solution to create our idea and bring it to life. But also it's about networking and connecting with people and then finding the right time to do a certain idea. For us, we knew that we wanted to use motion capture, and I think, and this may be like an esoteric thing, but if you send out your wishes to the universe, the universe connects you with people, because there's a ton of money, there's a ton of stuff, there's very little ideas worth making, but a lot of stuff that people have. For example, this motion capture suit was at this faculty, and we really did something, with it.
But also there are also cheaper solutions that require a bit more work in cleanup afterwards. So there's like Rococo motion capture suit that is 20 times cheaper, but motion capture is not as good. You have some jittering, and maybe the contact of the legs with the surface is not perfect. So you need to invest a little bit more time in cleanup, just taking this into consideration. And I would also say, like, if you wanted to use motion capture, you should explore the internet for, people do crazy things with phones and stuff like that. We were just at a gaming developing studio in Zagreb that they do a lot of motion capture for their games using phones. So that's something, What we love about motion capture is, please animators, don't hate us. Animation is always the bottleneck in the budgets and in time-wise, So motion capture for us allowed us to maybe explore where we can cut down on production time and maybe, see if we can implement this on other projects.
But also, if I wanted to just say one thing, we, when creating the visual for this character, we try to find a visual solution that's also technically works well, because with such a solution as we did, you don't have to worry so much about contact of the character with the ground and all these things which in motion capture are super difficult to get, especially if the ground is not completely leveled, but like in our case you have this, terrain which has bumps, ups and downs.
Yeah, our fingers, like we couldn't,
fingers.
It's very hard to do motion capture of the fingers.
Or also,
like
facial expressions and all these things. So even when creating the visual approach to it, we're always thinking about the technical possibilities and production-wise, because we're directors and producers, so we're lucky that we have the same persons wearing both hats, so we don't have crazy ideas coming from the director, and then we have to work with it. We incorporate everything, the discussion inside ourselves. Yeah.
Okay.
Hope this helps.
I'm so sorry we have to close it here, but let's say you will stay with us for 10 more minutes. It's the time we need to prepare the next one.
Yeah.
So if there are more concrete, technical, or either producer or...
Yeah, please approach us. We would love to discuss further.
The tent at the exhibition is already dismantled because like you are leaving for Split today,
right,
but the experience is visible. It will be there, so please check it if you didn't yet until Sunday. At the Museum of Modern Art Metelko. Thanks again, Popović Bros.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Chris, and thank you, Gerben, for being with us.